Do you want a little help?
Don't worry about me. Fighting that little beast made me start thinking about the animals I left behind on the island, so I let my guard down. Now to fight like I mean it.
All right. Do you want a little help?
Don't worry about me. Fighting that little beast made me start thinking about the animals I left behind on the island, so I let my guard down. Now to fight like I mean it.
All right.
Well, hi there. It's your favorite guy from the South, Skip.88. I'm drinking my great tea with my Slytherin cup from Harry Potter. How's everybody doing? This is my smooth and southern voice. I'm trying a different tactic, instead of being the loud and obnoxious Skip.88. I'm lying. Baby boys, baby girls, what's going on? It's your boy SKIP.88 here from Blerd. I'm saying, what's up? How y'all doing? It is 2025. Glad to see y'all again, and welcome back to Being a Blerd, where we talk to awesome Black nerds in the community that are doing great things and they are contributing to the community. We got a special guest that's standing in the back right now that's ready to come on, and we're gonna talk to him, get what makes him a Blerd, and get to learn about him. So I want to say thank y'all again for showing love and support to the Blerd Open crew. We really do appreciate it. We got some great things coming up next week. We have a otaku 90s house party, a 90s otaku house party. Burn my tongue. And we are having that's on February the 7th. And on February the 8th, we are having a Black cosplayer photo shoot at Comic-Con. So y'all seen the videos. Y'all see how we do. It's like Dragon Con with my boy Sherman, where he comes and set up like the big photo shoot at Dragon Con. So we're gonna bring it to Comic Con. So y'all tell your folks, tell your auntie, tell your grandmama, tell all your cousins and uncles, tell your ex that's still somehow part of the family because she still get the messages because y'all didn't take her out the group family chat. So tell everybody to come out and dress their best, being the best cosplay, and let's make some noise. Let's put a Black nerd scene in the city of Birmingham, Alabama. And if you can see the news, my heart and everything goes out to the families that were lost in the plane crash that happened in Washington, D.C. Praying for them. That was a very tragic accident that happened, and really hate that happened. And just now, I guess, got word that another plane crashed in Philadelphia. So, yeah, man, it's some crazy times. So y'all stay prayed up. Check on y'all people. Check on everybody, especially check on the ones out there in California. Y'all check up on everybody. Yeah, man, we living in some times because this is some strange and hard times, but we're going to get through it together. But make sure you send all your love and prayers out to everybody through these tragedies. Keep God first, keep God in your life, like I always say, because without God, none of this would be possible. And, God is the head of our life, and, we're going to get through this. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our special guest for tonight's interview. And we're going to let him introduce himself the way he want to be introduced. And we're going to get this thing on and started. So without further ado, let's welcome this brother here.
How you doing? My name is Othello Gooden Jr., a.k.a. JG the Traveler.
All right, say that again, Governor, for the good stuff. So let the people hear you.
Yes, my name is Othello Gooden Jr., a.k.a. JG the Traveler. JG Traveler is my artist name. I've been doing stories ever since the age of 5, and I'm 40 now.
Okay. So JT Latravel. Okay. So thank you for coming to the show, man. We're gonna have a good time. Glad to have
Thank
you
you.
on, and just to talk to you and us, what makes you a blur, man. So thank you for coming on. We're gonna have some fun. It's gonna be a good time. And everybody, if you got any questions, or anything, put them in the comments. Be respectful. If y'all see some trolls, y'all know what to do. We gonna kick them out the classroom. So JT. JG, I'm sorry, it's that so close to T, but JG. Ooh, that's a tongue twister right there. JG. Say that 5 times fast. So tell me, what makes you a Blerd?
I would say that I've been into nerdy things ever since I was a kid. My father got me into beginning with Transformers, but then I
Mm,
branched off into seeing other anime forms. Like when it was in America, it was Samurai Pizza Cats, but then in Japanese it's known as Kyoto Ninteon Day, which means Ninja Cat Legends. Bite me.
okay.
Um, but it's like Edo era, so like that last word is kind of like whatever the situation calls for. Um, and then in the '90s, no, early 2000s, I got into like when Toonami was really like popping. It was Outlaw Star, of course, Dragon Ball Z,
The OG.
Trigun,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was a lot of other number. I think there was trying to see because when I was in seventh grade, my friend got me interested into like streaming services. This is like the era before Crunchyroll, or you just like go on different internet sites to stream anime. I can't they don't exist anymore now, but a lot of people during the '90s, like this era, knows about Demon Slayer. The
Mm-hmm.
'90s era, the '90s era knew about the original Slayers, the Slayers, and the main character was Lena Inverse,
Okay.
and uh, and I'm bad with like the main character of Demon Slayer. Um,
Is he the main
she
character of Demon Slayer?
no.
Oh.
I can't remember the name of the main character of the Demon Slayer. So there's like a similarity between both of them being, prodigies or like, getting stronger. And the Slayers basically, she was on the top of her game, but still, um, like she went from slaying dragons to actual demons, and then this one, but they didn't call them demons; they called them Mazoku, which is basically
Another word for demon.
right.
Okay.
Um,
I'm
And
smart.
so one of those, like they knew that his race was in trouble because of her, and she had a mission basically from someone who was similar to the one above all, and she
Mm.
had a spell that could basically call upon the power of that being, and that's what they called the Lord of Nightmares. And then years later, I found out that the person who created that series, he had a more technological side of that multiverse, and he called it Lost Universe. It was basically, instead of magical beings, it was the spaceships that just were like existing since the beginning of time, and people just found them. They were basically like legendary battleships in space, and um, I basically from there the anime that I got into, um, mostly in like sci-fi type of animes. Gundam Wing being one of my biggest ones, and that's my favorite.
Ah. Okay. Okay.
And Gundam Wing, what Heavy Arms with Troy Barton. So there's like I like the way how it looks, but still my second favorite would be Death Scythe, and the Death Scythe Hell Custom. And I've actually when I was in school, I actually had model kits that I built in Heavy Arms and Death Scythe and Wing Gundam was three that I built myself. It was like a 1 out of 100 scale, which is kind of like
Hey,
this
you're a powerful
tall.
man. I hate getting them things together. It's so hard to put those things together. So, more proud
It
to
took
you.
me hours. I think like the longest time it took me for like my first time when it took me like 3 hours. And
3 hours?
yeah, I just sat there and just like putting together. And actually, I timed myself. That's how I know. And I remember like when they was advertising them on TV, it was kids advertising how long it took them to build that model. It was like they was like say what model it was, and then they say the time. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do something like that. And this was before they had YouTube and stuff. I said if YouTube was around, but this like back during the era of Newgrounds and things like that, I could have posted some things. But back then, bandwidth in space wasn't all that, and um, there was no way to upload those type of videos to the internet anyway. Not that I know of, and I didn't have a fast enough connection. Like a big video would have took me all day to upload or download.
Oh wow, man.
Yeah, because I had back then I had dial up, and I hate slow computers.
Oh yeah, I remember dial up. You get mad when somebody pick up the house phone and knock you off the modem. Oh,
Yeah.
those were times. Yeah. I'm telling
And
my
it's like, and then like the network get too bogged down. Like, oh, guess what? You got to redial up again. I said, bruh.
The struggle, man. We telling our age right now. Yeah, there was a time when you had to dial up and use the phone line to get to the internet. So, shout out to my people that's what 30 and above. I think they had experienced that. Yeah, 30 and above. Yeah, y'all new generation. Y'all got the lavish life. Y'all got Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I didn't start doing YouTube until I graduated from college. Like, and actually, I didn't even know about YouTube until one of my friends told me. Like, I was like, in matter of conversation, he said, "You don't know about YouTube? It's like what you're doing, like learning animation in college. You could do something like that on YouTube." I said, "Hold up, what's YouTube?" And then he told me what it was, and then I'm looking and it's like, okay. So then in 2009, I started doing. Was a memoir day Ray Lawyer vlog series. I was writing my first novel at the time, Ray Lawyer and Don.
Okay.
And then I had a lot of people that was like, there have been pre-orders if I had finished the book before I graduated. But I think I finished it in 2010. Was published by Dream Team Publishing. Then they went under. Then I went to Amazon, and then I took it out, and nobody was buying it anyway. But I'm gonna relaunch it because I had to add some stuff to it. The story wasn't. I thought it was complete, but then looking at it, it's like, well, fortunately, only a couple people bought it anyway, and it was all my family members. And I said,
hey, that counts. Hey, family come through in the end. That's what we need.
Yeah,
at the end, we got family.
Yeah, my aunt is one of my biggest readers. Shout out to her because she's like my biggest support. And then actually, my other cousin is one book that I just finished last year around this time, My Nebula, which is a cousin favorite, one of my favorite cousins. She just finished editing that book. Basically,
oh wow! So you got your family helping you with your comment.
That's a novel actually.
That's a novel. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now that is awesome. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So My Nebula, basically, I created him in the 5th grade. And I was high off of watching Time Cop and Tom Baker's Doctor Who. And he was actually my first cosplay as well.
Okay.
And had the mannerisms down, the little quirks, the perhaps that down and everything. And that day in class when I came in, that was my cosplay, first cosplay ever. I was just full acting like him. They couldn't get away with, me acting like, I had the hat tip, the scarf. I had a scarf that was identical to the one he wore in the show. And even the coat was too big for me because it was my father's coat. But that was like, so I envisioned a black doctor. And before they come up with this, Shudigawa, but mine, I feel I wrote him better than what they did Shudigawa's version. But I actually, the idea that I took was like the multiverse that he sits in, the background is a little bit borrowed to where how they had like with William Hartnell's Doctor at the very beginning of Doctor Who. He was envisioned to be a human from an advanced Earth society before they changed him to be a Gallifreyan.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that. But if you actually find the archives, you find out that he talks about him and his daughter which now, the other who's, you don't have any mention of his family, but it's like, oh, there's River Song. No, he had a daughter way before River Song. And River Song technically isn't his biological daughter.
Man, you,
And
you, you put
and
me on a whole.
actually, he had like in his family, William Hartnell, his version, I think it was his daughter and his granddaughter. So his
Mhm.
family was traveling with him on his journey, and he was going to be an observer. But then there was this one episode where his granddaughter didn't like these human sacrifices going on, and he said, "You got to do something about it. This is not right." And he said, "We can't interrupt time." And then from that point, like something happened because she got, you know, they they went after her, and he said, "That's it. I'm done with y'all. I'm going to stop this right now." And that's when a Doctor who was born, the meddler, the interdimensional meddler,
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
time traveling meddler. So with 2K Returner's story, um, I came up with that in the year 2000. But I created the character. At first, had him as my own personal name, Othello Gooden. Um,
You can tell he's very excited.
hmm?
Say again. I was reading the comment.
Okay, so his story so that I came up with him is actually 2K Return is also one of my gamer tags. So that goes a long way, even 25 years later after I made it. And I gave him a personal name when I started um,
Excuse me.
building the background of Reloy's memory. Wind up being Othniel James Goodman. And then when I last year, probably about, wait a moment,
Mhm.
think, trying to say, I wrote Dr. Kronos first. Dr. Kronos technically is the second story in the Ray
Okay.
Lawyer verse. And that timeline is how, like, before time travel was invented. And Dr. Kronos was trying to prove her father wrong, who believed time travel didn't exist. She wound up rewriting her own, you know, um, backstory and future. And the work that she does, she inadvertently creates a timeline that 2K Return Othniel James Goodman comes from. And she
Uh huh.
has a Othniel Goodman in her own timeline, but he's known as Othniel Silas. And then, like in my Nebula, the way I wrote it is that he basically blasts that door open to the multiverse. Because not only is there Othniel Silas, Othniel James, and Othniel Chris, then, like, and as you're in a dreamer, you're introduced to Chris's daughter, and then also Othniel's daughter, Celeste. And I that story still developing. As you're in a dreamer, I'm like trying to get the artwork done, and then I'm going to release that book sometime this year, probably during the summer. And then I started working on a manuscript called Cyberstorm, which is the first story in the Ray Lawyer verse, even though the reason why I say it's the first, it takes place in cyberspace,
Okay.
um, but I'll get to the part where it collides with the human world.
All right. So
Uh,
far with this great novel and comics that you got, if people
mhm.
want to purchase them, where can they go to purchase these awesome works?
Oh yeah, you can go on Amazon. Dr. Kronos is for sale. Issue One of Powerland Haria is on sale. Is for sale. My Nebula and the Stardust Girl. So
Okay.
um,
So that's five.
wait a minute,
Correct.
Dr. Kronos, My Nebula,
Two.
Powerland, Haria issue 1, and Stardust Girl is 4.
Four. Okay. Four. Okay. Okay.
Um, so those like the other ones, like the Powerland series. Hold on, I was going with Cyberstorm. Sorry, my bad.
No, you good.
Um,
You good.
yeah, so Cyberstorm. I'm still working on that. Like right now, we're doing the back cover, and then when it gets edited, that's also going to be released this year. So Cyberstorm takes place at the beginning of the origin of cyberspace.
Okay.
A lot of people think that's 1999 when Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web. No. Um, George Lesage. He created the electric telegraph in the 1800s. That's the beginning of digital information. That's the beginning of cyberspace.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
the way how I created that world is that different people that have contributed to the expansion or the improvement of cyberspace, there is an AI god that is created in their seed. The first one, he wasn't a lord, he was the creator of it. Is George the Sage. And so Cyberstorm deals a lot with different things in history. Like there's a um, like some villains that are like hackers, but in that world, they're like Wanda Maximoff and Franklin Richards and Dr. Manhattan. And so
Oh,
like
wow. Okay.
so they're like reality level warpers, even though it's all in cyberspace. And then there's ones that are like it's a little bit like Tron, like you have like users, but then there's and this I don't use that term, but I liken to it. There's the one main character. Um, in English, her name is Lady Cyan, but because her origin is from the Middle East, her name is Sayyida Ezrak, which
Say that.
means
Say that name again.
Sayyida Ezrak,
Say is that wrong? Okay.
which means lady in blue
Lady
in
in blue.
Arabic.
Hey, I like that. Light blue. Blue is my favorite color. Okay. That's
Yeah, and so like when you see when the guy that's working on it on the front cover, I'll be promoting it, and you get to see what she really looks like. Like one thing about her, she wears a lot of shades of blue. Like the blue spectrum is what her entire armor is, and so her story is she's chasing a time traveling criminal from the year 2045, and she ends up in the 1950s and she didn't go back far enough. And then when she's in there, a cyber lord by the name of Lord Shan Elwood, after Claude Shan Elwood, the father of modern information, 1920, 1950, tells her that so and so basically, what's his name is Miles Securus, which means axe wielder in Latin, um, went back to 1850 and assassinated Lord Morse, who was after Alexander Morse, the guy who created Morse code, and basically became a god there.
okay.
So she takes him along to find Miles, put an end to him, and find out, then she runs into Lord Morse's daughter, Amika Morse. And those two had to like navigate how we going to deal with Miles in this climate. And then I had this backdrop of something called a geomagnetic storm. Cyberstorm is what Lord Chanel would wind up calling it.
Mm,
Basically, to describe a geomagnetic storm the way how I did is take a hurricane and have that hurricane as big as Texas. And that event always happens either every day or every other month. Like you still have like a stormy weather, but then every once in a while you're going to have a category 5 that just wrecks the entire state. That's what I liken to a cyberstorm in cyberspace. It happens all over the net as well. And so Cyberstorm Carrington being the first big cyberstorm in history that basically messed up a lot of telegraph wires. Um, Saida has to deal with this cyberstorm and amidst trying to stop Miles. And so when the humans come in, there's issue with like, later on down the line because it's like a saga because you have like Amika's story, then you have her grandson's story who was in a fallout of an AI lord not being in the right time who let power corrupt him to the point that now he's against people that are cyberkinetics and he's like going on like this witch hunt to get rid of them. Unfortunately, those family members, like the one that from Mika's family, they're like she comes from a line of like because of her father, she has that cyberkinetic gene and her grandchildren have it. And then you have Akeem, it's like, I'm not liking this fact is that um like he's kind of like his part of his cyberkinetic, he can interface with cyberspace, and he can see through the future and the past. So he's like this, not like a clairvoyant, because
Hmm.
it's not going to happen if events don't go towards that way. He can see different futures and things like that.
So he's like
But
Professor. So Professor X in the type of way.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. Um, but the issue is that his methods in dealing with like it, it ultimately went down to the point that because Lord Elwood has a measure of success, it made him go crazy.
Mm.
And so he went from wanting to stop Elwood to wanting to make it so cyberspace only for bots. He wanted to exclude the humans, but not knowing that's a failed thing is because AIs can't live without humans. That's when he comes to the situation with Y2K. He was known as Y2K. He did something like that. So the
Okay.
humans come in, 2K Returner especially, Saida Azrak, and then you have um, another version of her from another timeline to find out that 2K Returner did not complete his mission. So you got this story of two different timelines, almost like I borrowed some of the ideas of the one series called Continuum, Canadian sci-fi series called Continuum. It's a similar idea with that. And the whole series itself, I based that on there's one web series that I'm still working on called the Super Mega Madness Show. So the
Okay.
Cyberstorm is a more serious take on that show idea. There's still some of the same characters in it, but the Super Mega Madness Show is more, I would say, in the future alternate timeline. Whereas cyberspace, you you deal with, like, you see the background of Akeem, almost like, well, I liken to him going crazy like how Sephiroth did. If you've played Ever Crisis, and you play the mission, the first soldier, you find out that Sephiroth he wasn't evil at the beginning. He only went crazy when he found out that he was only being used as a weapon, and he didn't like that.
Okay. Okay. And you said what's the name of the game?
Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis.
I could never get into Final Fantasy games. I just couldn't. More power to y'all though, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah, most of my stories are influenced by Final Fantasy or some kind of RPG like Chrono Trigger. Mostly the
okay.
time travel ones. Like there's one game that I play called Another Eden. It's by the same person who created Chrono to get the game the scenarios for Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. I think his name is Masakato. Um, and I like the way how he writes that. So even though he's a video game scenario writer, still I consider him as like an influence of my writing, because video game writers, they are writers. Um, Other than that, I have, like, my other influences would be Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek, and then you have George Lucas with Star Wars. But most of my stories are more leaning on maybe on the Star Wars side because of like the liberation aspect of it. Star Trek would be more or less like in Deep Space Nine, because there are space stations in the Reloyaverse, but Powerland is more Game of Thrones, Vinland Saga, and Lord of the Rings than anything else. And actually, there is like a scene that happens where a new race is created by the Queen. Basically, like, gives these one group of, discriminated against individuals a new identity, and right away you're gonna say, "Oh, those are elves," but she doesn't call them elves; they call them Narians. And she mentions that she read a book of fiction back in her own world, and that world was Earth, That book being Lord of the Rings.
Mm, that's great. Oh, that's crazy. Okay.
Right. And so I
Mm, that's great. Oh, that's crazy. Okay.
right.
Oh, that feedback.
And so I so the story that with Powerland Haria, I began that with Stardust Girl, which is the prequel that happened several hundred years into the past, with Zeni Anomaly, and she is the daughter of two supervillains, but she's not a villain herself. But the way how
Right.
I had explained it is that her father didn't accept her for who she was because in a society that he was a king of, and her mother being the queen, was a society that championed superpowers. She didn't have the powers that he wanted. He wanted someone who were like, the anomaly were ones who had displayed elemental powers like your fire, and then they have guilds based off of them in their home city. You got the Flamers Guild, the Ice Guild. You got the Veritas Guild, who are a bunch of telepaths. And
Okay.
Flamers Guild don't like them anyway because they're a telepath walking around, and like your deepest secret's been exposed because I'm telepath. That's invasion of privacy, and the
Basically.
Flamers who and the Flamer Guild, who even though they're fire element, they're hotheads. They know they just like, okay, we're just going to be toxic and evil towards the Veritas Guild. And that's what they were. Um, and so you have Zeni who had to hide that power because of them. But in trying to please her father, she lets that rip, and that leads to a lot of other problems, as what you'll see when you read the book. Um, but she does wind up getting like because she winds up being smarter than all her peers, stronger and faster. She's technically the first speedster, even though that goes to somebody else. His code name being Hurricane Zeno. That's how
Okay.
powerful he is. He can create a hurricane just by running around in circles, almost like the Flash, but faster than him.
Faster. Wait. So you say he's faster than the Flash? Because Flash
Yeah.
got the what's the Speed Force? So you say he's faster than that?
Mhm.
Oh
And
wow.
she's faster than that.
So what would you? So if we know Flash got the Speed Force, so what would you call his power, like his speed? What would that name be for him?
Well, I mean, he's a speedster. That's just like there's just no way else to put it.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So
Yeah. And actually, how I explain like speed, there's this one substance that it's real, but you can only see it from a telescope with a special type. It's called dark matter.
okay.
And so, dark matter, like the anomaly in their creation, is dark matter. So all their offspring gives them that superpower gene, that dark matter in their genome. So for those who don't have it in them, dark matter can be similar to Terrigenesis. If your genes allow you to have that power, or isn't toxic to you, you get a superpower. If it doesn't, you die a horrible death.
That's
And
terrible.
and so there are some people like because like right now, like the way I wrote like in what I've planned out, there's only one other speedster that is like there's only one anomaly speedster, that's Zeni herself. There's two other. One was kind of, I would say, hijacked. That's Hurricane Zeno. There's a third one. Her name is a Flare. But she was the one. She was descendant of the humans in Powerland that were exposed to dark matter, and that
Mm,
was through somebody in the ancient days. Um, and so I'm still working on that series itself. But right now I'm trying to get through Powerland Haria. And Powerland Haria takes place several hundred years um, in the future after the Anomaly Nexus War, which those two people were fighting over the humans. Like get that, some a bunch of people that Don Anomaly, King Don, the Don, believe we're a bunch of normies because they didn't have powers. You got the next who do have powers said, you're not going to be trying to massacre these people because number one, all of y'all were created by a human, one who's
Mhm.
a genius level intellect. So how dare y'all massacre your creator's people? And then Don is like, so you're a bunch of normie sympathizers. Well, guess what? I'm going to attack you also.
Can't they all just get along? Like no.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like that. And then Don wound up paying the price for it anyway because his biggest enemy wound up being his own daughter. So you know you don't goofed.
Well,
I'm like,
damn.
yeah. And then you have his wife comes back several hundred years later because, well, his widow. Um,
You say his widow came back 700 years later.
Yeah, she wound up going to a different dimension called Luster World. She comes back, basically all the pain and suffering of losing her father, of her husband. She basically it happens like another Wanna. She creates her own kid,
Okay.
and she sends her to be adopted by a family in Powerland. After she sends her to a portal or whatever, um, and she grows up
Oh,
seeing the oppression in this city, and she winds up becoming like the on the outside you see her as a villain, but then the way how I wrote the series is you see Anila Esme's upbringing. You see what she had to deal with. She was raised in an aristocratic family, but because she saw the suffering of her people and believed that the aristocrats shouldn't be.
JG,
Hmm?
give me 1 second. It had cut off. I want to make sure we get everything that you said. It cut off at an important point. At an important point, you was talking.
Hmm.
Restart where you was talking from what you said because it had cut off for some reason. That was odd. Okay.
Okay, so
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
All right, go ahead. Let's go.
So she had Anizla had saw the suffering. She didn't have a name at first.
Okay.
So the Assamese gave her the name Anila. So growing up, she saw she was raised in an aristocratic family because the city of Lux is basically an aristocratic society, the aristocrats rule. Um, but the thing is, there's like this class distinction. Even though the Amnarians are technically rebranded Anomaly, they still have that class discrimination. Anila didn't share that same um, thought process. She was kicked out at 18 because of that. So she's on the street seeing the corruption of the higher ups, the way how they oppress the poor, and she's like, I'm going to do something about this. And at first, people called her crazy, but just like you don't know who you're dealing with, and they find out it's like, oh, she's the right one to go behind. The problem is she's opposing the sovereign. The sovereign is the queen. The queen is related to Zini.
Mm-hmm.
So you're opposing the sovereign, who is a main character. That's the
Okay.
only reason why she's a villain. So it's kind of like that Magneto dynamic.
Ah, okay. Okay.
So technically, even though he is a villain, he operates almost like a anti-villain like Groot.
Wow. Okay. I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but Anila is not. She's not an anti-villain. So let's just squash that right there. She's full-on villain. I mean, but from a democratic standpoint, she's a hero because she's saving them from a poor, government. But she's a villain because she's opposed to the main cast.
Wow. This is good. This is better than some of the Marvel stories that I actually heard. This is really good. You put really some dedication, time, and thought behind all your work. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So how long do it usually take you to complete an issue?
Well, actually, when I did Powerland Korea, I started with writing out all the script first before I went to my artist. And it's still like the artists, they don't come cheap. So I'm like in the middle of trying to get another artist for chapter 4. I did have some done, but then she like disappeared on me. It's like, you know what, it's easy. It's like the guy that's doing the cover for Cyberstorm and also the editing for that book. He's going to be basically picking up, like redoing what she different, what she didn't get to. So um, I wrote out well, I had a freelance writer back then, just like 2018, 2019. I wrote
Mm-hmm.
out all the episodes first. Then I went to an artist. Because, say, like, maybe it was like right now, because it's on hiatus because of lack of funds. Hopefully, I'll find me investor be like, I like the story. I like the way how it's developed. You got all the issues in script form. Let me fund the money of the creation of putting this in the graphic. That's what I'm hoping for. I haven't found one yet, but um, for Patreon, that could also go that way. People get like any projects that I'm working on. Um, I would send them that if they like it. They can fund the operation. I've actually done this because right now I'm working on another series that's in the Ray Lawyer verse. Um, it's not connected to the main series,
Mm-hmm.
but some elements of it is a formula that I use across all timelines within the Ray Lawyer verse. Because the way how I had developed it is that the Ray Lawyer verse has Dr. Ludingham.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You got it.
Ludingham and Lord Ludingham are actually
There we
two
go.
different people, even though they are like Lord Ludingham is from the Dr. Kronos' timeline. Then you have Dr. Ludingham, which is from James Goodman's timeline, and he's not the evil one. And he has a twin sister that also helps the heroes out every now and then, but
Okay.
has her own story. And she was the one to first figure out that Dr. Ludingham and Lord Ludingham are two different people. And actually, I explored that a little bit in my Nebula. Um, and so that's one formula. His Lord Ludingham's company is known as Chimera Genetic Designs. Then you have the Global Union of Benevolence. It may sound benevolent, but they're not. They're a bunch of terrorists.
No.
And the way how I had explained them, because they come from the future, um, they basically, the way how I explain that organization, they are responsible for every terrorist attack in the 21st century in the Ray Lawyer verse,
Oh wow.
and probably every assassination in U.S. history and around the world.
That's nasty word. That is crazy.
Right. So you could think about as far as like Abraham Lincoln or even the Caesars.
Okay. So they took out all the Caesars.
Yeah. And even like the hired assassins are from this they're, I would say, special forces, but they're a bunch of basically mercenaries, and I called it the United Mercenaries Organization of the Terran Elite. And that is the instrument that the Goop uses to take out certain powerful people or people that's on their blacklist. And the Evanston, which is another staple in the Reloya verse, some things that they did to the 1%, the 1% went to the Goob and says, we don't want them here, deal with them. So in every universe, the Evastons are always either on the run or out of existence because of the Goob through the Yumo through the Goob the Goob itself. And so like when I was writing for Lori and Don, the main character Kayla Darton, her biological family are the Evastons, and she basically has been like bounced around from like safe house and like one bounty hunter saved her um because the Goob, like, she's basically what they call a survivor. I mean, she's a survivor, but is a witness to their crime. She's the only person that knows um who. Well, she doesn't know exactly who the Goob are, but she knows that somebody's after her family trying to erase her and her sister out of existence. Doesn't work. Um, because they're all survivors. And then the second book, I I called it Collisions. It sounded too mundane. I changed it to Sanctus Vigilia because the main character, Laura Giordano, is more like a Batgirl character. Sanctus Vigilia means the Holy Watch in Latin, and she's Italian, British. So actually, Italian British Romani. So I would say she is a person of color. And then the third book, Shadows of Revival, that deals with some and Doctor Who turns timey wimey stuff. Um, deals heavily with the Goob trying to insert their dominance in the main Reloyer verse. And you have the Time Trials Administration, which 2K Returner winds up being the director years later, um, having to find out, trying to stop them from, doing whatever they want throughout time. And so that is the other, like, the Time Trials Administration, they kind of are a staple, and then the Goodman family, they're a staple of the Ray Lawyer verse as well. But they're not found in every dimension, but there are families or people like the Goodmans that are, you know, that are staples of that universe. Like, there's one story I'm working on. Um, I will be releasing the first issue when my artist is finished with chapter one.
Okay.
It's called The Cosmic Hawk.
The Cosmic
And
Hawk.
Hawk.
Hawk. Okay.
Like
Okay.
like I'm
Like
like
the
that.
book. Yeah.
Call. Yeah. So that one in that universe, the Evanston that's in place of Kayleen Evanston is Kalen Evanston. He had some plans of something called a quantum hopper, which was basically a interdimensional thing. Before he was able to build a prototype of that, Goop came knocking at his door and wiped out his entire family. But him and his daughter Michelle were the only survivors. But they left that dimension because they couldn't do anything. Now you got someone who just looked at one of his working in progress videos on YouTube. Is like, oh, he's trying to make a dimensional hopper. Okay, let me see if I can build that. So she's like, the main character Adrian Porter basically builds, has her own computations, things like that, creates a prototype, but before she's able to activate it, Goop comes for her.
Mm-hmm.
But it was through the Canadian government, and the way how I set that world up, because of what I mentioned about the Goob in this earth controls all politics. So every government is there, you know what.
Wow.
And so she has to like partner with other people to basically, she wants to destroy her work. It's like, I am not going to be having blood guilty for something that some hacker leaked on the internet because of the goo basically, like, they fear Kalen's technology. He didn't just invent um interdimensional technology. He had plans like Da Vinci. He basically was a Da Vinci of the 21st century. The Edison family are basically that. There's the Da
Okay.
Vincis, the Einsteins, the Archimedes. They're all of that of the 21st century. The group feared that technology because the stuff that they pioneered was a threat to their caliphate.
Okay. Okay.
And one of them such thing was being hyperspace technology.
Hyperspace tech. Okay. Ooh, that's that's the
And
real thing.
actually, the way how this one is, like, this series is going to deal with a lot of like giant robots and mechas. So you got that Gundam
Thing.
influence
Yeah.
in there, but also a little bit of Pacific Rim because kaiju size robots. And I actually call them Robo Kaijus in this series. They're kaiju class automatons. And one of the main characters, Makoto Takahashi, she actually has one. But the enemies have it too. But the thing is, the ones that more closely directly built from Kalen's research. Their robots are a lot stronger than, let's say, Goop or the UN or the Melis Foundation. Even Melis Foundation is another staple. I forgot about that. They're found in every reality, and they're most of the time, well, they're always the good guy. And Makoto works for them,
Okay.
and they're after the Goop because it's like it's the Goop versus no, it's the Melis Foundation versus the world, basically. And you have certain things that Adrienne has to go through. Like she finds it like, okay, it's like, okay, we erased the whatever was stolen from my lab when I decided to run from the system because of Makoto's, elite, hacking, scrubbing skills. To find out before that even happened, you got this hacker that leaked her blueprints to the dark web. Now you got everybody and their mama trying to make their own dimensional hopper.
Hmm.
And on top of that, Goob is detaining anybody who gets close to building a working model of that. So now Adrian is like, I'm technically blood guilty because of all these people using my research to create something that's for like, research for fun or whatever. No, this is a life or death matter. And this technology is not supposed to be public.
Right.
But this hacker, with his anarchist ideals, want to do that. But you never see him. He's like a almost like the
Behind the scenes type of guy. You don't really see him for real.
right,
He
like
like
the wizard. He's like the Wizard of
yeah,
Oz.
yeah, yeah, Oz. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. You don't see him, but it's like she wants to rescue these people. He had like, and this guy, this phantom. He's like, well, you're gonna be doing my bidding, but then you think it's like, well, wait a moment. No, we're not, because we're not releasing them back to the public. They're given an option to work for the Mellis Foundation to be against Goop. So whatever they're doing is going to be for good, not for themselves. So this guy that's trying to jumpstart the apocalypse, it winds up being an epic fail because they're not going their own separate ways.
Mm.
So the series is going to be like a lot of fun, the Cosmic Hawk, and so I don't have a TBA for it, but it is it's going to be like one of my more grounded series. Like I liken it to Sliders and Jason Bourne.
Okay, I can see that matchup. Yeah, that's a good look. That's a good mix right there. It is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because Adrian running, that's when Jason Bourne is, but she's not an assassin. She's just a person of, and that's another series I forgot. And person of interest is more like that than Jason Bourne. So person of interest meets Sliders.
Sliders. Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool.
It
Well,
meets
man.
Gundam. Meets Gundam. I forgot about that too.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, I just got a few more questions for you because we almost at the hour mark of this awesome interview. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. We got my boy JG Traveler talking about his amazing novels and comics. So, and you can get them on Amazon. And let them know what they need to type in to find these amazing comics and novels.
Oh,
Oh,
so
and
you just put in my full name, Othello Gooden Jr. And actually, you can read some of them, my manga for free on Webtoons and voice.me, voyce.me.
okay, that's cool. Cool. Awesome, man. So before we end this awesome interview, is there anything you want to tell the good people on where they can find you on all your social platforms and any good words of encouragement?
Okay, so my social media, Travelers Frontier on Instagram, Twitter, JG the Traveler. Uh, Powerland series also. I have a separate one for that on Instagram. YouTube, Travelers Frontier, and 2K Return. That's my gaming channel.
Okay.
30 gonna come back. I had that. That's my oldest channel since 2009. Um, Words of encouragement. I said to keep on writing whatever creative art you do. Keep on doing that. It's better than being out in those streets.
Hey, big facts, man. Thank you for coming on, man. I really hope you enjoyed this interview. Let's give him a round of applause. That was the wrong button. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let me find the correct button. I like buttons. Yeah, I give it up for this awesome man, this awesome brother in this Blerd community. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. And at this time, baby boys, baby girl, what's going on? It's your boy SKIP.88 here from Blerd over saying thank you for tuning in, for being a Blerd. I hope y'all enjoyed everything that this brother said. He's doing amazing things in the community. Buy his novels, buy his comics. Let's get him in the fame. Let's get him in the light. Let's get him into the community of all the great comics. And let's make it happen. WTW, what's the word? Say it with me. UNITY. What does that spell? Unity. And I'm going to see you next time on Being a Blerd. And I'm out. Well, we out. Sorry, because he here with me. We out. Peace.
Do you want a little help?
Don't worry about me. Fighting that little beast made me start thinking about the animals I left behind on the island, so I let my guard down. Now to fight like I mean it.
All right.